Hello and welcome to a new step-by-step video. I am Mr. 23 and today I am going to try the impossible and explain you in less than 20 minutes how I created this huge Photoshop project. For the background I have used this picture from Aaron Visuals, and then I darken up a bit by using brightness and contrast. Then on top I use this image that I have set to multiply and added a mask. Added some smoke on top and in the middle, darken up a bit the top and added a moon. Then from this landscape I have used the bottom part and duplicate it 2 times. Then I have used this picture with the rocks, added a mask. Then I have added more rocks to cover the center area, and to match the colors I have used selective color that I have set to color, and then levels to darken up some parts. Then I have used some grass from Neostock. They have a really interesting pack with trees and grass, and the same I have used selective color and this time brightness and contrast to decrease the brightness and to match them with the rest of the images that I have used here in this part. Then on a layer set to color I have painted with a green color, so normally this was the layer and I have set it to color to have more saturated colors here in the center. And I have decreased the brightness on the rocks part, and then behind everything I have added some fire. There are some fire images that were set to screen, and because we have that fire behind I have added some highlights on the rocks on a layer set to linear dodge, and I have painted with an orange color. For the bear I have used this picture and I have selected the bear, added a mask, and then I tried to cover the areas that I didn't really like, and then I imported this bear into my artwork and I tried to match him with the rest of the images. So first I have added an exposure adjustment layer to darken the bear. Then with the selective color, the same, the layer set to color, I have changed the neutrals. I have played a bit with that linear dodge that I told you about. I have painted with a bit of green and with white color, and then with some orange colors to reflect the fire that it's surrounding the bear. Then I have changed the eyes of the bear. The first thing that I did was to paint the eyes, this shape, and then inside this shape I have added another layer and painted, manually painted some shadows. And then on top, first thing with an overlay, I have painted with some green color, again more green, this time on a layer set to color, and at the end I have painted with a blue color, and that was the moment when I decided to change the colors of the eyes with a hue and saturation. And on top of the bear I have added a recipient. So that was the original recipient that I have from Envato, and I have masked some areas and I wrote Mr. 23 on it. Then here I have added a mask to have the container behind the bear, and I have changed some things to match the container with the rest of the image. So first thing, I have added a hue and saturation and decreased the saturation and the lightness, and then with the color fill I have painted with a green color. With the brightness and contrast I have decreased the brightness down below. Then with the hue and saturation I have changed some parts of it, and with an exposure I have made it even darker, and I have painted with a layer set to overlay, some green reflection on the glass, and another one with color dodge. And then I have added this water splashing inside, and I have set the layer to multiply and change the hue and saturation to that green color. Then I have painted with the layer set to overlay, more green here on the container. I have added some ropes around the bear to hold that recipient, and you can watch one of my oldest tutorials with the mammoth. Is the same idea. You can watch the whole process, how to manipulate the ropes or the belts in this case, to move them around like I did here. Then I have added some shadows behind the belts, the ropes, with a layer set to multiply, and to those ropes I have added some highlights on a layer set to linear dodge. And on a layer set to color dodge I have painted with some green color on top of everything, and here I have also painted some green color, and on a layer set to overlay even more green to reflect more of that poison. And here on the bear I drew a scar, and this was made by digital drawing. I have manually drew those shapes, and then inside of that shape I have made some shadows and some white parts to look more realistic, and some blood, and to this wound I have added a brightness and contrast and made it even darker. Alright, now in front of the bear I have added this color dodge layer, and I have painted with a blue color, and it add more lightness, more glow to that area. And then with a layer set to normal I have painted a bit of fog. So this layer I have manually painted in front of the bear to create some depth between the fox warrior and the bear. Sometimes it's hard to use free photos, you have to invest if you want some quality results. So I had to buy this photo from Depositphotos, edit a mask and remove the sword, and then I imported the warrior into my artwork, and here I have removed her hair, and also I removed a part of her boots here down below to look like she is behind the rocks. Then on top of her I used this lovely fox photo, and I have selected only the head. So I have added a mask and place the fox on top of her head, and then behind her I have used a tail, so it's a tail from a squirrel, and I have added a mask, and I have used that tail behind her, and that was how I started it. And then I have copied this part of her suit and pasted it here on the other side. And because I didn't have that much information for this shoulder, I had to manually paint this area. So this is just you know, some manually painted, nothing exaggerated. Then I have added a sword, and I have placed that sword on her hand. First of all, let's start with the body. I have added an exposure and made the body darker, and then with a selective color I've modified the neutrals, and then with the levels I made the bottom part even darker. Now with the hue and saturation I have modified the costume a bit. I have made it orange, and the sides I have made it a bit gray blue. Coming back to the tail, I have made the tail a bit darker. Then with an exposure I have made the tail even darker, and then with levels I have added a bit of contrast, and then with the selective color I have changed the reds. With levels I have added a bit of brightness on the sides of the tail, and with hue and saturation at the end I have added this color more orangely. Then with an exposure I have added a bit of brightness on the top part. With that linear dodge that I use for my highlights, I have added more highlights. Here on the legs part, with the layer set to multiply, I have drew some shadows. And here when I started to work on the head part, first I have added a shadow underneath the head using exposure, and I have manually drew more fur on the sides. And with that layer set to soft light, I have made it a bit darker. With the brightness and contrast even more, and with an exposure I have darkened up the head even more. Then I have placed everything into one single group, and to this whole group I have adjusted a bit with curves the colors. Again I have modified the red, the green and the blue, and with another curves I have added more brightness to the overall image of the fox warrior. And then with the linear dodge layer I have manually drew those highlights, and with the hue and saturation I have modified the eyes color. I have made them green, and again I have added more highlights. This time I have painted with white on the sides and even more on the other hand. And I added some fire on the sword with again some fire images set to screen, and I have added a mask and kept only that part visible. Then from Envato and FreePic, I think I have added a lot of images with some you know, trees and ivies and leaves, and I have placed them into one single group, and to this group I have darkened up them almost to the black color. And then was the time to fill the bottom area, and I have added a lot of elements. This took me a lot of time, so I cannot explain everything that I did here. I can show you what we have, but to explain everything it will take me like hours. So let's see. So let's talk about this sword from the right. So it was like that, gray, and I have made it a bit darker using that soft light layer, and then with the hue and saturation I have added some color on the handle, and then with an exposure I made the sword even darker, and then with the curves I made it a bit brighter, and then I have painted the highlights, and the sword now looks much better like that. Then I have added those ravens. It was the same idea. With an exposure I have made them darker, with a dodging board even darker, and I have painted the highlights. I always use the linear dodge for the highlights, and I have placed a lot of grass from Neostock, as I said, and that helped me a lot to add more depth and to cover a lot of areas that I needed to cover using those tiny grass things that I said I have from Neostock. I'm going to leave you the link in the description of the video. Now let me explain you how I created a crack in this helmet. So we have this helmet. I have it from Envato. It's a 3D element. You can rotate it in any angle that you want. So do this helmet. Let's see, first of all, let's add a solid color adjustment layer and set it to black. And now hold Alt and click between the layers and go and click on the mask and press here on the properties, invert, or press Ctrl and I. Here with the mask selected, take the lasso tool, and now I'm going to randomly select an area from this helmet, something like that, and I'm going to press delete. Now we have that area selected, and let's go on the helmet layer and add it the mask. Now I'm going to select an area here with the lasso tool, and I'm going to press by holding Alt. So don't forget to hold Alt and then click and delete that area. Alright, and now that we have this one selected, let's go again on the color fill layer and double click. Now we want to add some outline to this shape, and for that we need to choose outer glow, and here you can play around with the spread and also the size, but try not to exaggerate. It needs just a small outer glow, and then hit OK, and it starts to look really nice. And if you want on this mask of the color fill, you can add some feather to have that selection not that rough, to add a bit of blur. And then we can create another color fill, solid color on top, and now let's choose this orange color, and if you hold Alt and drag this mask on top, you will add the same shape to that orange layer, and hold Alt and click between the layers to add it inside. And now if we select the mask and take again the brush tool, and with the black color selected, now if we paint, you'll see that we will add a bit of reflection inside that helmet, because it shouldn't be all black, and you know you can do a lot of stuff having some things coming out of the helmet and stuff like that. So this is how I created that crack on this helmet. Here on this shield, the same, I have this shield from Envato, and I did the same things. First I have added a dodge and burn to make it darker, with an exposure even darker, and then I drew the highlights and I added some blood, and then I have added some shadows to those arrows. For this soldier, I have selected him from this picture and placed him here on the ground, and then I have added this spear. Then I have added this flag. Follow the same steps, make the flag darker by using the soft light, adding an exposure to make it even darker, and then the highlights, and that was it. And to blend even better the things that I have added all the soldiers and the weapons into one single group, and I have added more highlights using the linear dodge, and now I think they look much better. Then with an exposure, I have added more shadows here and there to cover some areas that should have more shadows, and with the levels I have made the front part even darker, and then in front of everything I have added some grass and made it really dark. And the thing that I forgot to mention was the magic, the poison behind the recipient. Let's go to it. So this green magic it's the magic that I have it in a lot of my tutorials, is the gradient map method. So you should watch the tutorial with the little girl and the book, the magic book. I explain there step by step how to create this type of glow or magic. Now I'm going to add a camera raw filter. For that I'm going to make a screenshot from all the layers. So press Ctrl Alt Shift and I, and it will create as I said, a layer from all the layers. Then right click on it and convert it to a smart object. After that go to filter and choose camera raw filter. Those are the settings that I have used. You can use them or use your own. And here on the detail I always add sharpening, noise reduction and color noise reduction, and the grain. This makes a lot of sense because it will match the entire artwork, the entire design much better together. And on the calibration I have decreased a bit the hue and the saturation on the blue color. Then hit OK. Basically, if you want to learn this type of photo manipulation, you should watch my previous tutorials, because I kind of do the same steps all the time and the same techniques, and what it's different is the stock images and of course the overall idea. If you want me to keep on posting high quality videos, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching this video and see you next time.